Welcome everyone. Even though we have some, as you know, right, weather that's prevented us from being together today, we still have the technology to be able to deliver content and keep on schedule with our syllabus. So what I wanted to do is actually take this, and this is a great sort of, I think, a topic, if you will, consumer behavior that we'll be talking about today. And I think we'll use this as a kind of a teaching moment. The fact that you have online education, which many of you, I think from discussions in class, have not actually experienced and been privy to. This will give you a little chance to kind of dip your toe in the water, take a look at what's happening in online education, and experience it a little bit, try it out, and use this as a way to tie back to the topics of today in consumer behavior. So here's our storm that's coming up the East Coast, coming underneath us from the Philly, New York area, and is arriving, at least from the looks of taking a peek out the window here at the home office. It definitely looks like it's starting to spin up, and it will be challenging. And hopefully you guys have a good weekend and enjoy all the good versus the bad elements of a snowstorm. So we do know, obviously, that a class was canceled yesterday. What I'd like to do is I've done a couple things. I've actually posted a number of forums. They're in the discussion portion of Blackboard Vista. And this is typical of what an online class would be. You will, and obviously are listening to this and viewing this online lecture. So typically every week you'd have one of these lectures that would be posted. Try to keep it under 20 minutes. That's what I'll try to do here for us as well. And then you spend some time on the discussion board. So here's an example of 3 fora that I have posted. So you'd go to one of these fora, take a look at them, and there's a one talking about massively open online classes. I think we might have mentioned this in some of the sessions in class. They're becoming readily available. What do you think the attraction is for schools to offer these types of classes? What are the risks? How do you market them? And then what you do is you would actually respond and create a message and start a threaded discussion based on this particular topic. So there's the and you'd put your comments there. You'd post it, and then from there others would take a look at your comments and then respond to that, and so on and so forth. So typically 3 to 4 fora are posted every week, depending on what the topics are. The second one is talking about the pros and cons of online classes, what consumers want and what they're looking for. The third one is something and gives you a specific version of a mock. And I'm actually taking one right now. It's a class offered by the University of Edinburgh, in Scotland. And you can go ahead and kind of look at that. Here's actually the class that I'm taking. It's on e-learning and digital cultures. We're in week 2 of a 5-week course, and it talks about different discussion forums, just like what we have and what you guys will hopefully be using over the course of the next few days. I'd like you to be able to kind of take a look at that and what's going on over the weekend. So one of the beauties of online education is that you can kind of do it, in your pajamas, early in the morning, late at night, whatever suits you. And in this case here are the forum that are their latest activities for this particular class that I've been participating in. So it's kind of interesting how it works. There's the posts and latest activity and who's on there. There's I think, if I'm not mistaken, a couple thousand people that are actually taking this course right now. So it's really interesting how it all plays out, and I'm learning a little bit more about these kinds of courses and how this teaching happens and how it affects teaching moving forward. So I'd like you to take a look at that when you get a chance and take a look at the forums, and please respond. It's not a requirement, but it's a nice to have, and I think I'd like to have you play around with this a little bit just to get comfortable with it, to see what your thoughts are about whether you like it or not, or what the issues would be in using it, and then we'll talk about that on Monday in class. So a couple of things that I want to cover and focus on for the slides for Friday's class, if you will. And consumer behavior is not just a function of how it's kind of how consumers make purchase decisions, and then after they made that decision, how do they use the product and then dispose of it after the fact. So all these elements are components of how consumers behave, and it's important to sort of know that, especially if you have a business that's trying to sell products or services to consumers. So every consumer decision-making process has 5 components. First of all, you have to recognize that there's a need. Then you go off, you do your information search to see what's available. You look at what's alternatives or elements are most important to you. You purchase something, and then you do a post-purchase behavior. You kind of look at what happened as you used it, after you used it, and you decide, did that really satisfy what my needs and wants are, or do I need to move forward? And then what overlays all of this is, again, cultural, social, individual, and psychological factors affecting all those steps. So first, you obviously have to recognize that there's an imbalance between where you are and where you want to be. So I'm thirsty. I need to buy something to quench my thirst. It could be as simple as water, or maybe you don't buy something at all. It maybe is a water fountain that you go and you use, or maybe you're really thirsty for a certain kind of beverage, whatever that may be. If you're during a game, for instance, right, you need to look at a product like a Powerade or a Gatorade or something that not is just going to quench your thirst, but also introduces electrolytes and other things to help keep you at the top of your game, so to speak. Or if you're going out, it's a Friday night, and you're going out for dinner, it probably wouldn't be water or sports drink or energy drink. It would be, maybe something that's alcoholic, a glass of wine, or something else, depending on what the situation is in terms of who you're going out with and what your end game is. So what marketing does is it looks and helps consumers recognize that there's an imbalance between that present state, right, and the preferred state, and helps you sort of deal with getting that back into balance. And there's internal stimuli. There are things that help make you recognize, oh, I'm thirsty, I'm parched, I need to get something. Or maybe it could be that you're out and you're going out with your friends, and you weren't really looking at drinking per se, and they may have some suggestions. Hey, you know what? It's a big special weekend. There's something on there. Hey, have a couple of glasses of wine or a couple of beers or some other kind of drink, right? A cordial or whatever it is that you want to have. And there may be elements that sort of drive that externally instead of your own personal internal elements as well. So what drives sort of needs and wants and unfulfilled needs and wants? Well, sometimes it could be a product that you have that just really isn't performing properly. You bought something to, let's say you were into losing weight and you're trying this new dieting product and it's not working, so you need to look at something different. Sometimes it's as simple as, you've been using something and, oh, no more paper towels, I need to go buy some, so you just run out of the product. You see that happening. And then maybe you're looking at a product that's superior to the one that you're currently using. So let's say you've got a phone. So for me, instantly, I had been a dedicated BlackBerry fan, used it for a long, long time. But surfing experience on my Blackberries had been horrific, although I was extremely happy with the robustness of email service, security, all that. Never had an issue with any of those. So I started looking at alternatives. I looked at iPhones, I looked at Droid-based phones, looked at the new Blackberries, and that really didn't seem like an option. So I ended up going with a new Droid phone for a number of reasons. I thought I had more flexibility, there was more power, they were more interesting than sort of the control element that came in the sort of limited nature of the iPhone, at least for me. So I had something that I thought looked superior. I know I needed it, and then I took advantage of that. The information search, sometimes it's internal. It's based on your experiences. You recall, what your experiences are with product, what you may have heard or looked at. So for me in my phone venture, I was looking for, I had this years of experience being a dedicated BlackBerry user, both corporate and personally, and then having had family members, right, that were, we've got one family member that's a Droid user, all the other 3 are iPhone users. So I kind of knew what they were going through and what their experiences had been, friends, family, other people, and seen what they had done, and then my own personal experience. And then other times you have external information, very common. Some of it's non-marketing controlled, where you just sort of kind of talk to other people and see what's happening. And then other times there are companies that pitch and sell, like Apple or Google or Samsung or Motorola or any Nokia, any of these companies that are pitching certain messages and that they want you to hopefully resonate with you. So that's where all the information sources come from. Typically, if you're looking at external information resources, if you have a product that has less risk, you don't really need to know as much about it. Maybe some consumer goods, you have a low interest, you don't need as much information. And typically, if you go to the right where you need more, there's a lot more risk. So typically that almost directly translates to the cost of the product or service that you're buying, whether it be a car, a house, a college education, a complex machine for a business, whatever those things may be. There you really need a lot of data, because the wrong decision could impact you for some time to come. Once you've gone and picked out sort of the superset of the things that you're looking at that are of interest to you, and you've kind of thrown out the ones that aren't options, that's called the evoked set. And there you really start looking at the product attributes, making a list, pros and cons, trying to rank them by attributes of importance. And then ultimately, after you've got that evoked set, which is the subset or the superset of the groups, the total when you started the process, the information search process, then that goes into the funnel. You go through the filtering mechanisms, and then you have a purchase at the end of that. And the purchase decision is very simple. You either buy it or you don't. And marketing, if it's done well, determines which attributes are most important in influencing a consumer's choice. Right? So you look at what people really factor in, what drives behavior, consumer behavior, and good marketing attacks those things and works on them to help influence a decision. Again, if you've got something that's a routine response behavior, buying a pack of gum, a cup of coffee, a bottle of water, towels, like toilet paper, paper towels, simple sort of commodity items, usually you just kind of do it without thinking. Conversely, on the right-hand side, you have extensive decision making, right? Where we talked about, a job, a car, a home, a college, those kinds of things. Lots more involvement in that. And then you have products that are sort of in between. Maybe it's your next MacBook or your next computer. Could be a phone. Could be the next person that's going to cut your hair. There, you've got a little more sort of skin in the game, if you will, and you've got variations on products from one thing to the other in terms of how well consumers are involved. So extensive decision making, right? High levels of involvement tend to be very expensive. There's a good correlation between cost of pricing of those items and how involved you are. There tend to be lots of brands. It usually takes a long time to decide. And then this thing about cognitive dissonance is basically you start, once you make that decision, you say, well, did I really make the right decision? I'm wondering, should I have done something differently? Because there's a lot of risk considering that you may have made the wrong decision, and then you've got to live with it for a long time. So that's what cognitive dissonance is, kind of questioning yourself. Some people call it buyer's remorse as well. What determines your level of interest? Right? Do you have a lot of experience in buying something and using it? Is this like not your first rodeo? You've done it, bought products in this area, 5 or 10 times before. If you haven't, you're a little more careful. Is it something that interests you? If it's a hobby or something that you're really into, let's say you're an old car collector, or you're a collector of antiques or something. If that's something that interests you, even though it may not be a big dollar item, you get something out of the process. Are there risks associated with making a decision that doesn't work out? Situation could be, your car broke down and you need to get it repaired right away, otherwise you can't go on your big cross-country trip. You may be hard-pressed, and you may make a decision much more quickly, not as thoughtfully, because there's time pressure involved. And then lastly, social visibility. Is it something that you're worried or concerned about what other people may think about what you're driving, what you're wearing, what products you're being associated with and using. So all those elements also have an influence on consumer involvement. So high involvement purchases, extensive information, promotion to the target market too. So you tend to see lots of sales promotion, one-on-one association, high-end types of collateral being either printed catalogs, other support materials tend to be sort of very high-end, very detailed, because there's a lot of information that you want to communicate. Low involvement stuff is get people's attention, 2-for-1s, coupons, money off, displays, anything to get them to stop to look at you. Very, very different kinds of marketing, and differences in marketing dollars as well. So again, 5 factors influencing decisions: involvement, how much time you have to make the decision, what the product or service is, how extensive is the information search, and then how many alternatives do you have. So this slide here kind of takes all those previous slides, puts it nice into one, a good study guide slide for you. Routine response behavior, you kind of do it automatically without even thinking. And the fact that, you may buy the wrong sports drink, big deal, it only cost you a couple bucks, you don't worry about it. You make these decisions quickly, fast, almost without thinking, but there is sort of a subliminal element to it for sure. And then between the extensive and between the automatic sort of routine stuff, there's variations in all of that. It takes, and it's a function of exactly, how far away you are cost-wise, what the situations are, all those things. So there's kind of a big squishy middle, if you will. I thought, and hopefully you guys have taken a look at the video from our guest speaker Bruce that came in this week. This is a screenshot of the segmentation map that he talked about and presented. And it's really interesting. I'd like you to spend a minute or two looking at it, and you look at all these different categories that they came up with. This isn't the most sharpest kind of thing, but you can still kind of figure it out. 20% are a help me play category in terms of why they drink. There's the amp it up part, which is 8% of that. Make me more carefree, which is interesting, and enhance the celebration. So if you actually look at all the subsets of these major categories, that's 3, that's 9, 10, and then you've got 18 different distinct categories that they came up with. Switch it up as entertain me or give me something different. Okay, so that's, I guess, being kind of open to different kinds of products to drink. The biggest category is boost my confidence, which I thought was almost 25%. Build my self-assurance or make an impression. And those are definitely 2 different elements. I just, you can imagine the hundreds of hours that they put into this to try to characterize their different spirits in Jim Beam and figuring out which one of these blocks they go in. But it is interesting when you think about it, there are different reasons people will drink. And so if you're looking at bring us closer, right, that's maybe trying to enhance the moment. Connect me and set the mood. I mean, that's probably not going to be natural light beer, I wouldn't think, in that regard, or a low-end kind of beverage, right? It's probably going to be something that's a more higher-end, subtle, more refined kind of spirit, or a liquid, as Bruce liked to call it. But just really focus on that few, 10 minutes or so that he talks about this topic, because it directly targets understanding consumer behavior, why they drink, and what's behind it will change what you should be able to pitch to them in terms of how to do it. I thought this was a great slide. So just think about that, and we'll actually spend a minute or two in class about that as well. That's actually the last slide. Another thing that I want you to take a look at here is I took a look at, this is, you probably won't, I don't think you can actually hear this audio from this particular video on this lecture capture or screen capture, but I do want you to run this thing and take a look at it. So just make a copy of the link, and it's and then we'll talk about this on Monday. But what is the target demographic here that these guys are going after? So obviously it's people who would be SUV buyers, but how is Toyota trying to target a different sort of demographic within the people that are interested in SUVs. It's kind of interesting, and this is kind of a funny video as well. So I do want you to take a look at it, and then we'll talk about it on Monday as well, and keep that, you know, in terms of your frame of mind. If you look at the 5 different elements, right, that are there in terms of how consumers purchase and what they're looking at, keep that in mind as you watch the video, and then we'll have a discussion about how that Toyota, right, is trying to position their product a little bit differently. You know, you need an SUV, all right? Well, okay, so I've honed it down until it may be 3 or 4. So they're trying to imply something about the Sienna SE option, and trying to position that with their video. I mean, 12 million views is not a small amount of views for something, right? Almost 12 million. And this was a campaign that was actually done a couple years ago, actually very successful. So take a look at that and enjoy your time on the discussion board. And we'll see you, and hopefully you'll have some fun in the outside elements over the weekend, and then we'll see you on Monday. Thanks.